Hello, beautiful community. Welcome back to Peel the Onion, a space where we get raw, real, and gently strip back the layers that keep us from our truest selves. In today's solo episode, I'm diving into something that's been deeply alive for me at present, the unraveling of victim consciousness, and how it's showing up in both subtle and loud ways right now. We'll explore how this old energy is leaving the planet, how I've personally noticed it in my own family dynamics and healing work, and why reclaiming our voice, our power, and our sovereignty is no longer optional, it's necessary. Whether you find yourself in the victim, the rescuer, or even the therapist role, this is an invitation to come home to yourself with compassion, truth, and embodied presence. So let's dive in. So this solo episode was inspired to, one, practice the talk and lead the walk. There's a saying, walk the talk. That's what it is. And I've been gathering my own insights of big personal shifts I've been moving through over the last 6 weeks, I'd say, since big changes in my personal life, not only growing a beautiful human inside of me, our first baby, but also enhancing our home, doing renovations, and then moving to a completely different area where I was brought up about an hour away from the ocean and with my parents. So upon all of these big changes, I tuned into what's really present, and what I've noticed is the victim consciousness rising to leave. And other healers I've been tuning into have also been saying this for some time, but we're really at a pivotal point in our awakening on the planet that we cannot look away. We have to face what's coming up, what's most present in our life. And that's always a question I start with every client session. What's most present for you right now? And as I've used that inquiry question for myself, I've been not surprised, but I've noticed things that I didn't notice before. And personally, the victim consciousness being one of them. So with any healing journey, it is always a choice whether to lean into what's present or resist it. But the more I find I resist or look away or blame through that victim consciousness, which that's what it essentially means. It's not taking responsibility for what is yours to take responsibility for, because there is also over responsibility and over ownership. I was a person of that growing up, where I would carry all this weight constantly that wasn't even mine. A lot of it wasn't, but I just have this high level of responsibility, which through trauma EMDR work, that comes from a deep-rooted belief that you're the ones who impacts others' emotion. You need to know what's going on. It's a fear, it's a protection state of being. It's drilled in from a young age, which is dysfunctional. But coming back to the choice of resisting or leaning into it, leaning into what's present. It's a beautiful leader, Richard Rudd, who's the creator, inventor of gene keys. He speaks to how we choose to wilt or we choose to evolve. It's a choice. And I love that because we do live in a world of duality, and it's finding the balance, yes, the neutrality, but the reality is duality is here, black and white, light and dark, happiness, sadness, very basic. explanation there, but one cannot exist without the other. So sitting with, what are you choosing to do right now? Is it wilting or evolving? And noticing the subtleties in that. So if we were to drop in a bit more with the topic of victim consciousness, a powerful book I've been reading by Yolanda Norris Clark called The Portal. It's preparing me for a pain-free, blissful, orgasmic birth. She speaks to the 3 archetypes within the drama loop, the drama triangle, which I love. And the 3 archetypes are victim, perpetrator, and hero and rescuer. So the victim, it's clear in their language that the victim is the one that's, why me? And, oh, this always happens to me, and poor me. The victim, it's playing that card, and it's very low vibrational because it suggests that there isn't power and agency in your choices. It just is, and it's just happening. Perpetrator is the one that inflicts pain on others. Projection is another way, projecting your own wounding onto others, blaming others. More of a active role, where victim, I would say, is more of a oppressive role and just copying it or dealing with it, and that's it. And then there's the hero and rescuer archetype. And a lot of healers, therapists, psychologists, practitioners can play this role. And this role is really the belief that you rescue others, and all that you are, and even in the work that you may do, whether it's your job or not, but you're a hero to others' pain. And what's really interesting is this is also maladaptive, ineffective, and part of victim consciousness, because it's a way of escaping your own feelings, and it's also taking away someone else's opportunity to learn and grow through mud. I mean, if I pause right now, I want you to think about the last time you were moving through a challenge, because we all move through challenges or overcome challenges. That's a constant cycle. But the last time you were in a challenge, and reflecting on how muddy it was and dark it was, but also how you got through it. And by getting through it, yes, leaning on supports, but no one's saving you. Through your own wisdom, you made it through, and you've taken away key treasures that you wouldn't have found in that darkness if you didn't go there yourself. So the rescuer really can reduce that ability for others to evolve in a powerful, sustainable, strong way. And at the root of it, it's running away from your own feelings, and also playing that egoic role that you're helping others so generously, but needs to be different, because it's still emphasizing for people to look outside of themselves. And in the day and age that we're in, there's just so much conditioning and systems and patterning that is telling us that we aren't enough, and we aren't powerful, and we aren't our own healers. So it really actually encourages that traditional roles of psychologists and psychiatrists and GPs, and while they have their place for medicine, I'm really looking forward to the world that's emerging, which is teaching kids from a young age that the power's within you, and And it's how can we build that relationship with ourselves first to remember this feminine wisdom that's within us all, regardless of our gender. So circling back to victim consciousness, the rescuer I giggled at. As human live, I noticed from living with my family again how I was tapped into that energy and the energy of being a therapist, because from a young age I felt like I belonged in a household when I was being the mediator or the one that lifted everyone's spirits, because I grew up in a home where so many things were left unsaid. My mum would often give my dad silent treatment, and my dad would often be yelling and really loud, aggressive. So there was so much emotional dysfunction that the way young Liv felt safe and felt like her role was to be that rescuer, to be that uplifter. But at that age, I didn't have the words. I just knew intuitively in my body I was in overdrive. My adrenals were constantly active and stress response. And I knew that because I would do Kundalini classes outside of home or see dear friends, and the shift in my state of being from being around different, more uplifting energies then made me realize the contrast. So back to playing the therapist, the victim consciousness of the therapist role as a child, adolescence, was present as a 30-year-old living with her parents. And initially I did notice the victim consciousness of, oh, same stuff, or here we go again, or nothing's changed. And I noticed those thoughts, but I also felt defeated and I felt very irritated. And by letting myself feel what I was feeling, I then started to gain more clarity that boundaries were needed, letting my voice, even though growing up my voice was rarely listened to, I just needed to. And that started to rock boats and create storms, and then it all unraveled to a big mess of, whoa, I've been playing this therapist role. So there came a point where I literally needed to hand over my hat, and I said that I'm retiring, and I called out all the things that I'd learnt, that I was playing and that I was choosing. I took responsibility that I chose to play the therapist role. Not that it was wrong, but with compassion for my younger self, that's how I needed to cope, to feel as safe as I could. But I was ready to let her shatter. And leading up to that, I kept tuning into, what do I need to let shatter? And I just let that permeate my being. And over the next few days or even a week, things started to shatter. And the more honest I was with what was present, coming back to what I said at the beginning, the more clear I saw old imprints, roles that no longer served me. And then I fiercely needed to cut. So there was some very key lessons there around taking back my personal power. That was soul retrieval work. I felt the pain in my heart. I had to go there. I had to feel how tender it was, and also be really honest how hard it was. I'd cry a lot, but I wouldn't pretend it was okay and then people please after. I really protected myself. I spaced myself, and yeah, I had to lean into a new role of just minding my own business and cutting off those cords, but finding a new way to still show love to those I love dearly, like my parents. So, with that very vulnerable personal share, as I said, there were key wisdom takeaway points. And what I noticed, what helped me so much was allowing my body to speak. And by allowing, just noticing my responses when, let's say, one of my parents were around, whether it was my dad, noticing how my body responded to his presence, and then mum as well. And breathing into those spaces, but with the breath noticing where it's showing up, the disharmony, the irritation. And then I bridged my mind, noticing what thoughts were playing out to send signals to my body. And they were around not feeling safe, not feeling like I can be myself. So I caught those, and slowly, I started to rewire and affirm I am safe now. I have power now. Key beliefs from EMDR therapy, and embodying those and choosing from that space. So once I created a little more safety, yes, I felt discomfort for a while. I then cognitively planned how to create better boundaries and self-protect in a way that wasn't going to zap me. Because in the past, I've done that where I put up all the walls, and yes, that is necessary with certain relationships that are highly toxic. You need to keep yourself completely safe and not share anything. But there's also that dance of knowing, okay, is this a past trauma response because my present feelings aren't aligning with this, because now I know I'm safe. So again, that tuning in, that dance of knowing how much space or protection, right? But through those affirmations and the body responses, then letting the feeling be known. I really let myself feel what I need to feel in my own time. I didn't try to hurry it up. I used to do that, which made it more painful for myself, more pressure on myself. Like this expectation that you had to do it quickly. It's funny. But I journal so much, like pages every night, even in the mornings. And in my meditations, I wouldn't escape what was present. I'd, again, accept what is, accept more of who my family members choose to be and where their souls are at. And that practice of embodiment, which is that feeling, like what label the feeling as well. Like, what is it? And then I also lent on my husband a lot. Was just really honest, which felt really liberating. And then finally, a little piece that took me a bit to solidify this process and feel really cut off and strong, choosing otherwise, was minding my own business. Simply coming back to myself, the moment, and not analyzing others or looking at people's flaws. Again, a trap that can keep you stuck in one of those archetypes of victim consciousness, particularly if you're listening and you align most with that rescuer role. We've all played victim. We all can still play victim. But the rescuer role of tuning into other people's shit, it's not your job. even if you are a practitioner. Unless it's really invited and it's asked, cool, go there in a session. But personally, that has been so liberating as a mantra. Just mind your own business. And accepting what that is. I know young Liv didn't understand what that meant, but again, there were layers to my persistence to want to know answers. Again, control to seek safety within. Just an illusion of mind. But walking away with, right, come back to me, what's important to me, mind my own business, and keep my heart open, not shying away from, who I really am. So, being pregnant has really activated my voice and truth. It started happening before I felt pregnant. I feel like that was the deeper soil work of laying that fertile soil to build this new version of me, this new foundation, my new self, my new life, which is so funny how the external world beautifully is mirroring that with a baby and a new home. I just love the magic of life when you see those weavings. Have a laugh and a giggle and a thanks. But yeah, moving from maiden to mother has been deeply transformative already, and I've also given it space to honor, to feel it all, and cast out what I'm ready and what I was ready to cast out, and to keep the fruits of growth that I'm really proud of for who I am right now. And all the layers in between, all the messiness and hormones. And the chaos in the world too. Let's not forget that we're part of something much bigger. And also the ripples, knowing that your healing is part of a global awakening. It's rippling out. So brave new decisions that you make and say no is helping more people than you realize. And that truth for me was such a motivator in sticking to myself, my faith, and persevering when it got really hard at one point, really hard. But overall, the key essence of unpacking, unwinding victim consciousness, and really being a conscious light worker, healer, whatever title you give yourself, or cycle breaker. Knowing this is all about coming back to yourself. And coming back to yourself requires that you remove noise, you create space to feel, to be, to breathe, to sit still, meditate, and really learn who you are. Because the more I've done these things and learnt who I am with the conditioning, with the patterning, with the victim, which is, you can say the shadows are dark, the more I've seen this part, felt this part, these parts of myself, the more I've been able to come to what's really true, what's light for me, what's me and my exuberance and full energy, and choosing that. That's how I've kept choosing the highest path for me, because I am aware of the parts that are not so pretty or so comfortable. To really, the more you get to know yourself through choice and through work. It's not easy. You don't just wake up. It's a choice. And it's definitely hard if you are the first one in your lineage to do that. But it's knowing that You are the one that you've been waiting for. And knowing this is how you create personal power, your sovereignty and liberation from all these expectations, conditionings that aren't aligned for you. And you're really choosing to cut that imprint, because those who still often play the victim, who aren't aware, who don't want to know, who just say, yep, they told me to do it, so I did it, in terms of systems, choices. That's the energy they're choosing to align with, but you still have a choice. You've got to be ready to choose accordingly, because that's responsibility that you take. So I wanted to thank all of you for tuning in this vulnerable and powerful conversation. And just know if this episode stirred something in you, maybe a knowing, a memory, or a desire to break free from old roles, I want you to trust that. Let it guide you. Because you're allowed to evolve, set boundaries, and choose your own truth. You don't need to carry what was never yours to hold. But please share your thoughts in the comments sections. You can find me on Instagram at awakened_MBS, or subscribe to Peel the Onion podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, which are all in the show notes. Till next time, stay soft, stay strong, and stay true to the self that's ready to rise.